Okay, so some variations to work with in bridge, some pelvis and spine movement. So you're going to come into just a standard bridge position. And you can watch all of this first, or I'm going to do it as though you were doing it along with me. So your feet about sitting bone distance apart. You can be more narrow, more wide. Just see where you feel most grounded through your feet. And then just take a moment to breathe and sense your body resting on the ground, sense your body in space here. So you might imagine in a lot of the bridge work that I do, I have an emphasis of really less effort. So using just as much effort as necessary, as little as possible, so that you're not tensing or straining or overdoing. So you're just trying to find just the right amount of energy for the movement. So we'll start that even by lying here. So notice if there's any part of you that's still kind of like holding yourself up away from the ground. And should you notice that, then just let it settle down. I tend to, when I'm lying down, for example, feel that my mid-back is still kind of lifted up away from the ground, so I just kind of allow that to settle. Like the whole front of the body is just melting towards the back of the body. So we start from this more easeful place. And then I'm going to sense my feet on the ground. So I'm going to sense my toes, the ball of the foot, where the arch is, where the heel is. And then I'm going to imagine that my feet are in sand, and I'm going to sink my footprint down into the sand. And as I do so, I start to notice that my pelvis changes its position. It curls under. My sitting bone, my tailbone is like kind of reaching up towards the back of the knee, and I'm just going to keep sinking the foot down into that imaginary sand to lift the pelvis up, coming up one vertebra at a time. So you're rolling up each vertebra at a time. We're just going to do just the standard kind of rolling bridge a few times. So up at the top here, just notice you're on the upper back. Notice if your spine again is kind of hoisting itself up towards the ceiling, which isn't bad or wrong, but we're going to see if we can just kind of allow the front of the body to still melt towards the back of the body, not pushing it down, but you're just letting the hips lift up, and then you just allow the front of the ribs and the front of the lungs to just kind of melt down into the back of the rib cage. And again, check in, are you using just the right amount of effort to be here or extra? And then from here, you'll roll down one vertebra at a time. So some of the image that I love is either a string of pearls, and you're laying the pearls down one vertebra at a time. Or you can think of your vertebra as a string of Christmas lights, and that each vertebra that comes down, you're turning off one little Christmas light at a time. And then as you come all the way down, just take your time getting there and rest back down just into a just comfortable neutral position. So you can pause this, you can do that several more times just to really feel the roll up and roll down. I'll get into the variations here. So you'll again sink your feet down. Another thing I find helpful for a lot of people is you think of reaching your knees away from you, and that's going to come in when we do some of this work. So you reach your shins and your knees towards the wall that is closest to your shins and knees. So you think of reaching them towards the wall. And then as you do that, that kind of little directional reaching cue, notice if that created a little bit more ease. I noticed it did for me as I reached my knees towards the wall. I actually felt like some more tension kind of came out of my rear and my pelvis. And I feel like I can have the same height that I was at, but not as much tension. And just kind of check in. I'll notice my head, just kind of give it a little wiggle to make sure the neck is relaxed. So we're going to do some rotation here. So you're going to reach your left shin more towards the wall, and that's going to bring that left hip kind of up and that right hip down. So the whole pelvis is swiveling over to the right. And then you reach your right shin towards the wall. The left hip dips down because you're reaching that right shin forward. And I also have like a little bit more pressure down in my right foot. So again, reach the left shin towards the wall. The pelvis rotates to the right. If you had headlights coming out of your pelvis bones, they'd be shining a little bit more to the right. And as you come back to center, the light from the pelvis bones shines up towards the ceiling, and then as you reach your right shin forward, the pelvis rotates to the left. So you're trying to keep a long space, or just the space between your pelvis, the sides of your pelvis. I'm just going to keep doing these, so you can keep doing this along with me. Between the sides of your pelvis and the sides of your ribs and armpits. So sometimes the tendency, when we're just like learning this and figuring out how to make this movement happen, is I'll sometimes see either a hip shift over to the side and one side of the body kind of crunching in. So again, that's just a different movement. We're trying to keep like just a spaciousness through the space between the ribs and the pelvis. Okay? So after you've done a few of those, like kind of even out the sides, and again, roll down through the spine, and then just kind of notice what you notice. Is it easier to get one pearl more down through any of the sections? Because maybe it felt like a section of pearls, like 4 pearls came down at once, and now see if it, as you do this, if it starts to change. So one more variation, we're gonna again roll up through the spine, just notice what you feel. Just imagine each pearl taking its turn to come up off of the ground. And as you come to the top, we're gonna do a little side shifting. So the pelvis, you might imagine the pelvis is on like a skateboard or something that could glide and slide from side to side. So the pelvis is gonna slide over to the right and then come back to center. And it's gonna slide over to the left and back to center. And so I'm here watching, and I notice I have the tendency, I can just feel it, when I go to shift my pelvis to the left, I want to do a little hip hike on my right side. So I'm only going to go as far as I feel like I can keep that sense of spaciousness in the right side of the body as I go to the left. And I do know from practice that as I do that, it changes. So you just kind of glide from side to side. Okay, now come back to center, and you'll notice I have my hands, fingers on my pelvis bones, and I also have my thumbs on my ribs. So that helps me just kind of get a sense of where things are. I can really sense and feel into it. Now roll down a couple pearls, roll down a couple Christmas lights, segments of the spine. So now I'm a little bit more in like kind of the back of the like lower rib cage area. And then again, you're going to glide the pelvis over to the right. You could imagine that part of the spine that's off of the ground just below where you feel the spine touching the ground, that glides over to the right. And then you come back to center and you glide over to the left. And then back to center. So keep doing this from side to side. Just really go inside and notice what you feel. So see if you can still keep that sense of trying to make the movement as easeful as possible with as little effort as is necessary. And I'm also just watching what my knees are up to. I'm trying to keep the knees about the same place the whole time. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just notice if the knees are kind of wildly swinging all over the place. And then come back, and then we'll just roll down to about the low back. So now I have just the pelvis lifted up off of the ground and my little bit of my low back lifted up off of the ground. And again, I'm gliding the pelvis over to the side, back to center. You can kind of feel where you can move in that part of the spine, maybe in the low back area there, even if just a little bit. Still check in with the face, the neck, the shoulders, everything upper body's pretty relaxed. Notice your breath. And then as you come back to center after you even it out, then roll the rest of the way back down. Just pause here for a moment. And again, with ease, sink down through the feet, reach the shins towards the wall, and then peel up one vertebra at a time. Really go, take your awareness to your vertebra in your back. Sense the spine and its contact with the ground. And as you make your way all the way back up to the top, just pause there for a moment. Effort with ease. And then roll it back down. Roll through the back of the heart. Sinking the back of the lungs down into the ribs, down into the ground. Rolling through the low back. Let the kidneys sink down. The low back muscles just melt down into the ground. And then let everything go at the bottom. You can even take the legs and extend them out. Just let all the effort go for a moment and just notice what you feel. All right. So that's some of what you can do in the bridge. I'll add more videos later. Let me know if you have any questions.